Well, my husband, I think he was in the Korean War, and well, he was stationed in Etajima. That's Army station there. I have my sister, husband, he worked in Army base. He was an interpreter. Then my husband was a cook, and they know each other. So he invited come in his house, have a dinner, and they want me to go over there too. That's where I met there.
My mother was first coming to the United States. They came on a ship, and during dinner, it was very large, and they had put my mother and father in different shifts to eat dinner. So she was alone, and she couldn't speak any English, and it was a large table, and she wanted the salt and pepper, and she didn't know how to ask for it, and she couldn't just reach for it. It was too far down the table, so she got up and walked around the table and reached in between a couple of people and got the salt and pepper shaker and went back and sat down. And she said that this woman, she didn't know what she was saying because she couldn't speak English and she couldn't understand her, but the scowl on her face and the look on her face and her yelling, that she knew she had done something wrong and this woman did not like her. And later, my father did approach the woman to explain to her that my mother couldn't understand English, she couldn't speak English, and she didn't know how to get the salt and pepper unless she got up and got it herself.
They told me after a year, I had to take American citizenship. That was in a New Jersey courthouse. So we go over there, and one little room, just me and the man is ask a question. And the concrete floor I have here, and I go, taka, taka, taka. He said, "You okay?" "Yeah, I'm scared." He said, "Don't be scared." He said, "I'm just gonna ask you a couple questions." I said, "Okay." My husband, he can come in, he had to sit in the hallway. And he said, "No, I have to ask a question." I said, "Okay." So he asked me, he said, you communist?" I said, "Yeah." He looked at me real funny. And he said, "You belong to Communist Party?" "Yeah, party, uh-huh." And he get up and he took off. I said, "Gee, what do I do?" So he told my husband, he said in the hallway, "Your wife is a communist?" "No, she's not communist, but she says she is." I guess she just didn't understand. So they want me to go outside to the hallway. So I go over there, and he said, he told my husband, "Say something so she can understand." He said, "Mickey, you're not communist." "Uh-huh." So I don't know, she just don't understand. He said, "Well, they have a man upstairs, that's courthouse. They have a Japanese man working upstairs. We're gonna bring him downstairs. He can tell in Japanese." So he called them, and here they come, the man. He looked at me, he said, "Chan chin chan chin chan." He talked me Chinese. So my husband said, "He's speaking Chinese, she's Japanese." "Oh, they are different?" "Well, sure, they're different country." So he go upstairs, and I still just stood there. And the man said, "Well, say something, you gotta say something." He keep on saying, "You're not communist." And I keep on saying, "Yeah, yeah." So finally he said, "Red China." I heard that word. I never heard of communist, but I heard Red China. I said, "Oh, no, me no Red China." So finally he said, "My God, you almost send you to Japan." So anyway, I finally passed, and they have picture, and I think you pay $15 or something. And they give me little card, I passed there.
Mom, you know, she hadn't been here but a couple of years, if that long. And she and my father were traveling, and they decided to stop at a restaurant to get something to eat. And they pulled in and they sat down at a booth, and it was busy, but not that busy. But anyway, nobody ever came to the table. And then it got to be 5 minutes, and nobody came to the table. And look up at the counter, and the waitress is standing up there talking to the cook, and everybody's talking, but nobody ever came to the table. And so finally, when my dad said, "We haven't been waiting on, is anybody gonna wait on us?" The owner said, "No, we don't wait, we're not waiting on foreigners." And my father got real upset, you know, that they would do that and it was because of her. It was because she was Japanese, and so they wouldn't wait on her. I didn't appreciate my mother till after I had children. My mother came over here, and at 20 years old, she had me. Couldn't speak any English. 12 months later, she had my brother. Well, it wasn't until I had my child, and he was 12 months old, and I thought, my goodness, Mom had another baby now, and she couldn't speak any English. My father wasn't around, she didn't have anybody to help her, and she had 2 babies in diapers. And so anyway, that's when I began to realize what a strong woman she was.
Yeah, it was tough watching my mom. My mom didn't have a lot of friends, as far as I could ever tell. If you ever met my mom, you know, just an amazing person and the hardest working person you could ever know. And she was just as honest and as straightforward as she can be, and just funny as can be. And so I think once people got to know my mom, they really liked my mom. But for a lot of the neighbors who didn't know us, except by our color of our skin, you know, we didn't have a lot of contact with them.
When I was born, well, about to be born, she and my father had discussed what they were going to name me. And if I was a girl, my father wanted to name me Connie, which was her mother's name, Kane, K-A-N-E, Kane. Well, she wouldn't have it because she didn't want me to have a Japanese name. She didn't want anything for us to have anything to do with Japanese, because it was hard for her. It was difficult for her, so she didn't want a child with a Japanese name.
It was difficult growing up, you know, my mom being Japanese, and a lot of people not caring for my mother, especially even some members within our family. And I say growing up because I was probably 4 years old or somewhere in that. I used to get beat up a lot, and I'd come running home and crying to my dad, you know, and Mom, because, you know, I got beat up because I was a Jap. And one day my dad got mad and told me I better go out there and fight that little kid. And he always said that was the worst mistake he ever made, because I went out there and I beat the kid up. And from then on, rather than run home crying, you know, I was fighting. One of the things that's probably helped me from that period of time is, I think it's helped me throughout my life, is loyalty, and, you know, having really people that you know you can count on throughout. And that's probably a big lesson I learned from growing up, because I had some few tight friends that, you know, I remember Vincent Vincelli was my first best friend I think I had. And you know, him and my cousin Donnie and a couple of others, you know, they were the people that I spent most of my time with growing up in Cincinnati. And, you know, those were the memories I had, good memories, where I used to hang out on the street corner, and we'd play baseball cards, and we'd stack them up, and we'd knock them down, and whoever knocked that last one down got all the baseball cards, or we'd play other stuff. And we used to buy these baseball cards at a corner, like corner market store, grocery market with a butcher and everything, and it was right across from Roosevelt School, elementary school, where we went to. And so we'd always walk down there and get our baseball cards and get that piece of bubble gum, which was always so excited. And you're looking for the Cincinnati Reds cards, if you can find them, and any great cards you can get, and then the other cards you use to, you know, play the games with. But, you know, I thought that I had a good relationship with those people down there, since I always bought cards with them, but then again, I was only a kid. And I can remember once, after school was out, got cornered right at that store by, I was in the 3rd grade then, 3 6th graders. And, you know, I had a good fight. I got beat up, but I mean, it was 3 6th graders against me, and they didn't like the fact that I was Japanese, and they called me a lot of names. And then The butcher guy came out who always sold my baseball cards, and I thought, thank goodness, he's now going to break up this fight. And instead, he lit a cigarette and sat there and watched them beat me up. So a lot of things like that, growing up in my life. I remember once, these teeth right here are fake teeth that were broken. A bunch of kids held me, and I was being called Japs by multiple people, and and I stood and I fought. And then they grabbed me and held my arms. And in Cincinnati, they had these metal fences, and they took the gate and they just opened it and smashed it up against my face because I was a Jap and broke my teeth there. So growing up, not always the greatest of memories. Early on, we spoke Japanese, and I could speak Japanese. And when you're abused so much because you're a Japanese and you're little and you're screaming you're an American, I remember I felt so bad. I once told my mom that, I didn't want to be a Japanese and I was an American. I didn't want to know Japanese because all it did was get me into fights. And from then on, I really quit speaking Japanese. Growing up, not always the greatest of memories, but then again, I had some good memories with some, like I said, close friends that you have, and you learn how dear those friends are, and and they tend to support you and protect you when they're around, but when they're not, it's you against the world, and that happened often.
I think Mom and Dad, they struggled financially, and they did the best they could do. Mom did especially. But anyway, she could sew. She sewed wonderful. She made everything.
My mom was great at making our stuff. She made our pants, she made our shirts, she made everything.
She made all of my clothes. She made my brother's clothes, which he did not like. She made his trousers he did not like. She made all of my Barbie clothes.
Unfortunately, she also cut her hair.
She would also cut hair, poor Billy.
And that was horrible. It got me into a lot of fights. And, she would put a bowl on my head.
He would cry when it was time to get a haircut. He would cry because she literally put a bowl on his head and she would cut the hair all the way around. And he's already been made fun of, and so now he goes to school with this literal bowl cut.
And she cut it, and I sure looked Oriental after I got that haircut, which probably prompted a lot more name calling and me getting into a lot more fights. And finally my mom quit cutting my hair after I protested so vigorously, and
it was harder on him. My hair was long, so she didn't mess with my hair, but yeah, Billy had it a little bit harder.
We lived in projects. I didn't know it was the projects, but apparently it was projects in Cincinnati. And
we live in an English, apartment. They have a lady, the other side of the building. Our son was about maybe 5 years old.
And I can't remember, I was doing something there, and
I didn't know he hit the boy.
And this lady said she was gonna pour hot water on me and beat me up if I didn't get away. And
she was hard on Bill, my son, and she gonna throw hot water on him. Never told me that, so I said, what? He gonna throw hot water on my son? He said, yeah.
And so I run home crying to my mom that this lady's gonna do that, and my mom comes marching out there, and she's 4'11", if that, 4 foot nothing, just takes off marching down that street, and she pounds on that door.
I said, I'm gonna fix her. I go over there and bam, bam, bam. Everybody said, oh, Mickey, don't you go over there. She's mean. I said, well, I don't care. I go over there. I go back door. Everybody was just watching it, I go bam, bam, bam.
And this lady comes out, and it's so funny when you hear Mom tell the story. She would tell the story, and the lady would come out, and she was this really large woman, and back then my mom would tell the story, and she had tattoos, and for the early 1960s, and this was early 1960s,
Her name is Mary, and her husband is in jail. And she's a real tough lady, so everybody's scared. Oh, we don't know about, Mary.
She come to the door and she said, yeah, what do you want?
She opened the door. Yeah, what do you want?
And my mom would say, you say you're gonna throw hot water on my son? And she goes, yeah, what of it? You come out here, I kick your ass, you know?
And I say, you throw hot water on my son? Yeah, because your son hit my son. And I'm gonna throw hot water on your son. I say, well, you gonna do that? You come out of there, I'm gonna beat the shit out of you.
And that lady wouldn't come out. She wouldn't come out at all, even though she was 5 times my mom's size. And that lady says, oh, how are you gonna do that? And she goes, what do you know, judo? She goes, you come out here, I judo you. I kick your ass.
I'm gonna do judo. Come out. She didn't come out. She said, oh, you're too little, huh? You wanna find out? Why don't you come out there? She never come out. She shut the door. Everybody was just laughing, you know. I said, oh, Mickey, you scared her. I said, well, I fix her. She wanna throw hot water and I'm gonna judo.
And you know, the lady never came out. I remember once I had an opportunity and they were having Little League tryouts, and I was so excited that I could go down there, and I went down there and I was gonna be a pitcher. And we get there and, you know, I'm the only non-white kid there, and most everybody else's parents are there with them, and I'm by myself. I think my dad may have been in the hospital and my mom could have been at work, so I'm representing myself there. And, after they picked, there was only one person who didn't get selected for any teams, and that was me.
We lived in Cincinnati at the time, and during recess we'd all go outside to play. Yeah,
you know, that was at Roosevelt Elementary School, and there was 2 levels. I think 5th and 6th graders had the bottom playground, and the rest of them had the top playground, and I think Mary may have been in the 5th grade at that time, and I was probably in the 4th grade.
And my brother and I both got picked on a lot, but I think he did more than me.
I had a little tight group of friends. One was first Vincent Gentili, and then Daryl Penn, and I think another kid, and he was a bigger kid for our age. His name was Jimmy West, and even the 5th and 6th graders tended to be a little leery of him. But we'd run around, and we'd like to run down and invade the 5th and 6th grade playground because we weren't allowed down there.
This one particular day, I was out there on the playground, and a group of kids formed a circle around me. And I don't know if you remember Ring Around the Rosie, but you would hold hands and go around in the circle and sing Ring Around the Rosie, Pocket Full of Posies. Well, they formed this circle around me and started chanting, cheese, cheese, you're a Japanese, cheese, cheese, you're a Japanese. And I just cried. I stood in the middle of that ring and I just cried.
One day when we were invading the playground to run through it, then we saw this whole ring of people, and they were chanting Jap, Jap, go home, something like that. And I saw my sister in there, and she was crying in there, so you know, I went in swinging.
And here come my brother busting through that ring, and you know, he would fight.
I think I got beat up that day, but yeah.
And anyway, both of us got sent home, and that's one time I remember Mom crying. She didn't cry that often, but that's one time I remember her crying, saying she didn't like it here. She didn't like it in the United States. She wanted to go back to Japan.
I'd been called Jap so many times. I mean, if I got $1 for every time I was called a Jap, I'd probably be retired at this point in time in my life. You know, I've been called a chink, a gook, quite a few other different names. You know, it was just routine, and it wasn't just kids calling to me; it was adults calling me those names. Even in school, you get called Japs, and the teachers would turn a deaf ear to it. I can remember once being at a place where the police officer, he was a sheriff, and took an egg and hit me in the side of the head with it, and what was I there, 12 or 13 maybe? You know, surprising what adults will do.
I was probably in middle school and in history class, and the topic came up about Pearl Harbor, about the attack, and about concentration camps, and how they had set up concentration camps in the United States for the Japanese and the Japanese Americans. And someone questioned me as to what I would have done had my mother been put in a concentration camp. And I remember saying I would have gone with her. And this young man was just appalled that I would even think to do that after they had attacked our country. And I remember just how upset he was, that he almost made me feel like I was a traitor, you know, but she was my mother, and there was no way I could have ever let her be in a concentration camp and me not be with her. So anyway, those are just a few of the memories that I remember. Not so pleasant, but those are the ones that stood out. My brother, like I said, he had a lot more.
When we moved to New Richmond, Ohio, that was 6th grade. And again, I think this was the first time I'd ever, think about it, I'm in 6th grade, first time I ever got to spend the night with somebody. And other than my cousins, you know, but a non-family member. It's the first time I ever spent the night, and I won't say the boy's name now, but I got really excited about being able to get to spend the night at his house, and asked my mom if I could do that, and she was real leery about me being able to get to do that, but I convinced her that it would be great. He lived out in the country, and you know, I wanted to be able to go out and have a friend I could spend the night with, because we just moved into a new city. And so we go out there, and we're in his backyard, and it's summertime, and we're wrestling around, and his parents are sitting in lawn chairs, and they got their beers and smoking cigarettes, and they're just sitting there watching us as we wrestle. And this boy was he was a husky little fella, but you know, I'd been in a ton of fights now throughout my life, starting from, you know, kindergarten on, and you know, I was getting the best of him, even though we would just play wrestling, and I got on top of him, and then I remember hearing his daddy holler, "Ricky, don't let that boy beat up on you." And I saw Ricky's eyes, and there was just fear in his eyes, and I knew there was fears in his eyes, because I had that fear in my eyes so many times when, you know, 3 or 4 kids were getting ready to beat me up. And so, you know, I let him roll me over, and he got on top of me, and when he did, his mom jumped up, and she grabbed a handful of dirt and said, "Ricky, make that Jap eat dirt." And I'm spending the night at their house, and now here's this mother, and she is stuffing dirt into my mouth and making me eat it. Adults are meaner, you know, because they're adults. They're the people that you look to make sure, you know, that people aren't being put in harm's way. Instead, they're the ones who are instigating it and encouraging it, or turning a blind eye to it when someone's getting beat up.
Uncle Ivy was my grandfather's brother, and he liked Mom, and he liked my dad. Anyway, so he took on the role of trying to help Mom whenever he could. He had a cousin or another uncle who lived in the country. It was in Pendleton County. It was Uncle Bill and Aunt June. So anyway, when they would go up there, Aunt June would gather all these eggs. I mean, it'd be several dozen eggs.
And they go over there once a month, go over there and get a country egg.
For Grandma and Grandpa to bring back. And Uncle Ivy had said, "Do you want to stop at Mickey's house and give her some eggs?" And she said, no, she doesn't need anything.
She don't need it, you don't have to give her nothing. He said, "Well, you have to give her some." No, you're not gonna give her nothing.
He said, "Well, I'm sure that she could use the eggs, you know, they don't have a whole lot of money." "No, she's fine, she's fine." So it was always something like that, you know, she didn't want to share the eggs.
She just don't like me, you know, kind of real hate for me. And my children, well, my husband, he get I think he was in Korean War, and they say Jeep. I think he fall off Jeep, hit the head on a great big rock, and he get a seizure, like epileptic seizure. It
was difficult, you know. A lot of times my dad, you know, he's a disabled military veteran, and a lot of times he would be in the hospital, and it'd be my mom, and you know, I was trying to, you know, survive while he was gone.
And he started getting disability. And they told the VA, he said, "She Japanese, she don't even speak English, she don't even know how to count the money, so don't give her money. They send it to us, that we're gonna, you know." And I didn't know they go down there in a BA office and tell all that stuff. I didn't even know that. So uncle told me, he said, Mickey, you know what they trying to do? He said, they're trying to take your money away from you. And I think he got like a back payment back, you know, couple $1,000. So they was gonna keep the money. So that's what they trying to do. So I said, oh, I gotta call in the BA and, you know, tell. So I called and I told her, I said, you know, they told me I can't even count the money, and I know I don't speak much English, but I can count the money. I said, I only get it like $100-some now, and I take care of 2 children. If I don't know how to take care, now how am I gonna do that in $100-some a month? So don't let them give money. So anyway, they stopped there. So they start to get me check. And they find out, they get so mad. They didn't get that money.
My mother, she touched on my grandmother. She was a very mean woman. Today, I'm envious of people who talk about their grandmother or their grandfather, their grandparents, you know, how they love to go to their grandparents. My brother and I did not have fond memories of our grandmother.
I love my grandpa, and you know, I was named after him. I really enjoyed him, and I liked him, and you know, I liked most all of my relatives. They were good. I had an aunt that was rather mean, and that was, you know, yep, she was rather mean, and then my grandma wasn't the friendliest person in the world. You know, I wish I could say I had fond memories of my grandma like I do my grandpa, but I don't. You know, I really don't have any good memories of my grandma because my grandma didn't like my mother, and because of who she was, and so it's pretty hard to have memories. And you know, my grandma was a person that liked to call me names.
She didn't like my mother because she was Japanese. We lived, I guess, about 3 blocks from their house. And so if my father and mother went with us to my grandparents' house, she wouldn't say anything. But my 3 cousins lived with my grandparents. So if my brother and I would walk down there by ourselves to play with our cousins, as soon as we'd walk in the back door, she would say, "You little Japs, get outside."
My children come in the grandma's house. She didn't like it. She'll say, go Jap, go outside.
And we weren't allowed in her house. And we'd have to go wait out in the backyard till, you know, our cousins came out to play with us. Those are the fond memories that I have of my grandmother. When she passed away, I can honestly say I didn't shed a tear. I've never missed her. There was just nothing ever kind about her. When she passed away, my aunt was there, and she was talking about how my grandmother loved all of her grandchildren. She just loved us all. And she just went on, and finally I said, "Aunt Mary, I don't know the grandmother that you're talking about. My grandmother wouldn't allow me in her house, and she didn't even know my name because all she ever called me was Little Jap." And then she started to cry. She didn't know why she was like that, why she did that. So anyway, that'll just give you a clue as to if my grandmother could treat me and my brother like that, then you can only imagine how she treated my mother, who was Japanese, and she didn't care for her at all.
All different kind of stuff that make me sad. Still make me cry.
I'm sure it hurt my mom when I was screaming I didn't want to be a Japanese, that I was an American.
Even being young, I knew that our life wasn't the same as our friends. You know, And the fact that we were picked on, I knew that it had to do with my mother being Japanese, but no, I never felt that it wasn't our home, you know.